Yo, what is up? It is the Fantasy Bros. We're talking waiver wire pickups for week 7. Before we get into it, though, we asked you guys if you could subscribe. You guys have helped us hit 100 subscribers, so thank you guys so much, and let's keep it going. Let's try to get 200. All right, week 7, waiver wire pickups. First, we're going to talk running backs. We're talking running backs with less than 50% ownership and sleeper. Rachaad White comes in at 49%, so just do a quick check on Rachaad White. He's the obvious handcuff for Leonard Fournette, and if something were to happen to him, he has a crazy ceiling, so make sure he's owned in your league. But let's go into like the lower owned players, and we have Kenyan Drake starting off. He's probably going to be the most added player this week. He had a great week. He came in because J.K. Dobbins got hurt in the second half. The same knee that he was dealing with this whole time sort of got re-aggravated in some way, and his status is unknown for next week. So of the running backs on the waiver, this is probably the one that you could plug in and play. There may be one other, but if Dobbins is ruled out, I think he's probably the best plug and play this week.
So, yeah, if Dobbins misses, Drake is the best plug and play for sure because there's really not any other guys to play this week. So that leads us into our next pickup, which would be Latavius Murray. We're recording this on Monday, so if you just got done watching the game, you saw either A, Melvin Gordon was benched, or B, he re-aggravated an injury that he was dealing with. Whichever the case, he did not play hardly any. He only played 3 snaps. And Latavius Murray got the bulk of the load after that. And this being Latavius Murray's only his second week with the team, that kind of makes sense as he's learning the playbook and the offense. He would get more involved, and he was used a lot. Now, it wasn't pretty, it wasn't very effective, but he touched the ball a lot, and sometimes that's all you can ask for from a running back in fantasy, especially with bye weeks and injuries, is you just need someone that has opportunity, and he can provide that if you're desperate.
Yeah, so it doesn't seem like it was injury-related for Melvin Gordon. He seemed to be very frustrated on the sideline, and he didn't go to the 10 or anything, so it seemed like it was just a straight benching for Melvin Gordon. And Latavius Murray was the clear lead back with 15 carries. He came in and, like, even at the end of the game, he was the guy that was on 3rd and 1, trying to convert for them. So they seem to be trusting him going forward. He probably is the most reliable back for them, so I could see them moving forward with Latavius Murray. Now, the question, let's go back to our other running back, is Kenyan Drake, is he the best running back in Baltimore? Like, is he going to be the guy going forward, or is there a chance of that?
I mean, he looked incredible. He's shown flashes like this before in his career. He's had a couple games with the Dolphins where he looked like this. The season he got traded to Arizona, he only played like 8 games with them, and he looked phenomenal. He was explosive. He scored a lot of touchdowns. Everything, all you could ask for. And then the next year, the Cardinals sort of used him wrong. They used him as a short area and goal line back, which does not fit his body type or his style of running. So I think they did a disservice there. And now you put him in Baltimore scheme, who having Lamar Jackson opens up the running game. Having his own read running attack that they use also helps running backs. The Ravens system is a very running back friendly system. So I do think if he is deemed the starter, he will be a start worthy for fantasy. The only problem with that is you don't know how bad this J.K. Dobbins injury is. Gus Edwards is said to have almost came back this week, so it's likely within the next week or 2 he will be back just to muddy up the water even more. But if Kenyan Drake does average 10 to 15 touches in this offense, I do think he will be a startable fantasy asset.
Yeah, so he looked like the best running back. It's only 1 week, but he definitely looked much better than J.K. Dobbins. Like you said,
explosive.
Gus Edwards is coming back, so it probably is going to be messy. Justice Hill will at some point come back. Dobbins, I mean, it is a re-aggravation, but he will probably be back. If not this week, then maybe next week. So if you had to plug and play one of them this week, as waivers run tomorrow, would you pick up Drake or would you pick up Latavius Murray?
I pick up Kenyan Drake if you're only wanting to use him for this week, just because if he does play, his upside is much higher.
Right. Better offense.
Murray's.
Yeah.
If you're trying to pick up someone that has season-long value, I guess Latavius Murray, just because it seems like he might be the front runner for the rest of the year, and I doubt Kenyan Drake will get that. It's possible, but just given how many running backs they have and how many they use, it's less likely.
Okay, so those are the main two running backs. The only other one I wanted to mention was Kyren Williams, running back for the Rams. He hasn't seen play yet, but they need a running back. Cam Akers may have seen his last snap for the Rams. And Darrell Henderson is not going to be a workhorse back. They're going to work in somebody, and it seems like they like Kyren Williams, so he's like a stash this week, in my opinion.
Yeah, so Sean McVay talked up Kyren Williams a lot preseason and before the season started. And in the very first game of the year, he immediately got injured, which is unfortunate. So you really didn't get to see what he had. But like you said, with Cam Akers likely playing his last snap and it just being down to Darrell Henderson at the moment, I think Kyren Williams has the opportunity to at least come in and have a pretty sizable workload if he looks good.
Yeah. So don't spend a lot this week on running backs. It's not a huge spending week, and Kyren Williams is like a $0 stash in my opinion. Or wait till waivers run. Don't use your priority on him. But that does it for running backs. Let's move into the receivers. So do a quick check for Alec Pierce. He's 54% owned, which doesn't meet our criteria, but he's going to be available in 46% of your league, so do a quick check. He's had 3 straight weeks of increasing snaps. He's had 3 straight weeks of double-digit fantasy points, and he looks to be a staple of this offense at this point. And he's a rookie, so definitely should be owned in all leagues. So check on him. But let's get into the less than 50% players, and let's start with Wan'Dale Robinson. And that, in my opinion, is my favorite pickup this week. I know a lot of managers out there are going to need running back, but Wan'Dale has one of the highest upsides on the waiver this week. He's available in 80% of leagues. He's a second-round rookie for the Giants, who have no competition at wide receiver. So he has the opportunity here to come in and be the number one for their team, which you're not going to find really anywhere else on the waiver wire. Last week, he had 4 targets, 3 receptions, 37 yards, and a touchdown. Not an amazing stat line, but he looked pretty good. He got a touchdown, and he only played on 23% of the snaps. He's still recovering from his injury, and if he, continues to see an increased snap share, then those numbers are going to go up, and there's a good chance he establishes himself as like a dominant force in this offense.
Yeah, I love that pickup. The Giants are very high on him as a prospect, and like you said, once he gets recovered better and learns the offense more, because when you're not practicing, it's kind of hard to get a rhythm. I do think he's going to become very necessary for that offense, who's actually looked decent. Most of it's Saquon Barkley carrying the load, but the Giants, to most people's surprise, have looked very competent this year. So that leads us into our next guys, who are kind of like a bundle. So if you haven't heard, Hollywood Brown has a break or something in his foot. They weren't very specific with it, but it does not require surgery, but he is likely to miss about 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So he'll most likely miss until after the bye week, which is week 13. So that leads us to bring up 2 options. You got Rondale Moore, who is about 60% owned, so he's likely not available in your league, but just go ahead and check in case he is. And Robbie Anderson, who the Cardinals just traded for today from the Carolina Panthers. I think you'll see Robbie Anderson play that, I'm not going to say Hollywood-esque role, because I do think with Hopkins coming back, D-Hop coming back this week, he's going to play that role. I think you could see Robbie Anderson taking over the A.J. Green role, because A.J. Green has looked absolutely abysmal and does not deserve a roster spot at this point, just to be honest.
True.
So I think also if you look at the receivers' height, we've been playing with 5'9" Hollywood and 5'7" Rondale Moore and 5'7" Greg Dortch. The Cardinals need some height. So they went out and got Robbie Anderson, who's 6'3", and now with D-Hop coming back, who is 6 foot or 6'1", however tall D-Hop is, that adds a lot of height to their offense. Robbie Anderson is a deep threat, and just 2 seasons ago, he came off his best season with 95 catches, 1,100 yards, which is not bad. Like, you can't get those targets and catches and yards if you're a bad receiver. So I think he'll be a nice plug-and-play flex for some bye weeks for you. He's probably going to be more of a boom-bust type guy, a deep threat. he did catch a 75-yard touchdown this year from Baker Mayfield. So he does have that big playability in him. So if you're desperate and you need someone that might provide a spark for your team, Robbie Anderson definitely could.
So it looks like Robbie Anderson is one of the highest added players so far. He's trending that way. I have a hard time trusting the Arizona options outside of D-Hop right now for receiver because you don't know what it's going to be week to week. I don't think you can trust either of these guys. Maybe once we see one of them gets more established, but right now you don't really know which one is going to be like the fantasy asset that you're going to want to see. So I'm going to just spend a little bit on these guys, not really go in. And I think some people might go in on Robbie Anderson off the trade.
Spend too much up on him. If he plays the AJ Green role, granted he is vastly more talented than AJ Green at this point, he'll probably see about 5 to 7 targets a game. I mean, Rondale Moore seeing his 5 to 7 as well.
Yeah,
I would imagine D-Hop comes back, sees his 9 to 10, 11-ish targets a game like Hollywood was getting. So I don't think the target share is going to be split up too drastically. If you slide Hollywood or D-Hop into the Hollywood role of getting the 10-ish targets, Rondale Moore keeps his same role, and then you just replace AJ Green with Robbie Anderson, you're probably seeing 5 to 7 targets a game. It's all going to come down to whether or not they connect on those deep.
And the offense, if it can get it going.
Maybe that's what you're banking on.
Yeah, so for the receivers, Alec Pierce and Wan'Dale Robinson are the guys I'm going a little bit more in on. I'd probably spend more like 10 to 15 on these guys if you need a receiver. They provide a lot of upside for you. And then Rondale Moore and Robbie Anderson, I'm not putting too much money on these guys, but they're definitely worth a roster spot if you have the extra space. And then let's mention a couple of other receivers that are more like stashes for me right now, and that's Tyquan Thornton off of a really big game. He caught a touchdown. He's another second-round rookie, and he has an opportunity here. He seems to have some kind of connection with their new quarterback, and I don't know how long that's going to last, but you can't go wrong with really stashing a rookie. So I think he's one of those guys that if you can put him on the end of your bench, he's worth sitting there and seeing how he does this week after a good week.
Yep.
And then same for Christian Watson. I wanted to bring him up. Randall Cobb is likely to go on IR. I don't know I didn't see the injury report on him, but I've heard that something is very likely he's going on IR. And if that happens, I think Christian Watson is probably still worth a stash. I know it's been disappointing so far, and he's been very injury prone. But somebody's going to step up, which, we don't really know who that is, but Christian Watson is another rookie, so worth a stash.
Yeah.
And then quarterback, there's not much this week for single quarterback leagues. If you're in a 2-quarterback league, there's Taylor Heinicke. Something happened with Carson Wentz. He has some kind of injury. And then that's pretty much it. I don't think there's any new names there. But do a quick check on Dak Prescott. So he's, I think, about 78% owned. So he's probably owned in your league, but he should be coming back this week. And I think he's going to be very successful. I think he's going to be a good fantasy asset. So just do a check if he was dropped. Not much at quarterback this week.
For tight ends this week, check for Robert Tonyan. He's coming off back-to-back pretty nice games for a tight end. His snaps, his route runs, his target shares increasing every week.
Yeah, last week was actually he set his season highs in snaps, targets, receptions, and yards. And that happened to be the game that Randall Cobb went out. So he could be, an increasing workload.
With Cobb going out, Watkins on IR, now Christian Watson's in and out of the lineup.
Yeah.
They're really running out of options in the passing game, and their team hasn't looked great, so they've been trailing more than what people expected. So Tonyan might be a very nice tight end that, you can see right there, available 48%. So he might be able to pick him up and start him.
Yeah.
Another tight end that you need to watch out for, if you watch the Monday Night Football game, you'll see Greg Dulcich. That is a rookie tight end that they drafted and really talked up in the offseason of wanting to get him a big role. And then he got injured in preseason, unfortunately. And this was his first game played, and he looked really well. In the first half, or the first quarter, I forgot the exact breakdown, but there was like 18 snaps played for him, and he ran 15 routes. So very high route percentage on the amount of snaps that he's playing, which is what you love to see from your tight ends. He caught a long touchdown, which was actually the longest touchdown since week 1 for this Broncos offense. Would you like to see him going deep like that, that he trusts his tight end? So, I mean, just pick him up. He's a tight end. He's a rookie. He shows that explosive ability. And the last tight end, we touched on this last week, is going to be Daniel Bellinger for the New York Giants, another rookie tight end that has slowly improved and increased his snaps and his routes run and his targets.
Every single week, snaps have increased for Daniel Bellinger.
And he found the end zone again. And I believe he scored like 14 points this week, which if you get that from a tight end, I mean, you can't
94% of the snaps for him. He's really coming to his own, and they seem to like him. It's been conventional wisdom in fantasy that you don't, pick up or pay attention to rookie tight ends. But, last year with Freiermuth and now this year with a couple of rookie tight ends that are seeming to emerge, I think that rookie tight ends seem to actually play a role on a lot of these teams. And for Greg Dulcich, he seems to be, finding his role in the offense. I think he's surpassing Albert O. I think he's,
Albert O wasn't even active.
Yeah, he's completely their favorite guy and definitely worth a stash. I don't know if I'm confident enough to play him yet. I think you could plug and play Bellinger if you're desperate, but I'm probably going to stash Dulcich and just see what happens.
Yeah, it really just depends on who you already have. Like, if you have Njoku, I'm not even worried about these guys, honestly. I would just leave them out there. But if you've been really struggling and you've been switching between the Irv Smiths and the Tyler Conklins and those tier of tight ends, I mean, just keep an eye out for these guys, and you might want to pick them up and just see what they have.
And then just a couple other guys that are being added. Mike Gesicki is available in 58% of leagues. He just had a big week. I'm personally not chasing it. He hasn't had a lot of volume this year, and I don't really see that changing. He's just been kind of up and down, and he's very touchdown dependent. So he's just one of these, like, you could stream him on a week if you want to, but I'm not chasing the points. And then another one is Hunter Henry, who has actually been playing almost every snap, and he's actually someone, if I was desperate at tight end, I would actually look to. He got a touchdown last week. He looked pretty good. The last 2 weeks he's been on 98 and 97% of the snaps. So you like seeing that from a tight end. He's a pretty good tight end, and they're actually getting their passing offense going, surprisingly, with Zappy. So he's a worthy stream, I think. And that does it for our pickups this week for week 7. Appreciate you guys for watching. If you could, subscribe. We're trying to hit 200 subscribers now. Thank you guys for the 100 subscribers. We really appreciate it. Anyways, we have been the Fantasy Bros, and we are out.